Welcome back to War Ready. Hey, you may not be able to tell, but from my perspective, things are pretty different. You may not know this, but normally I stand. I'm in somewhat of an aggressive posture for me. I'm moving around quite a bit more. But today I just wanted to slow down, even change my posture, and do this bonus episode with some real practical application. This is material that I teach in multiple men's ministries and multiple ministries, in fact, for several years now, right about this time of the year, every year. Let me start with a story. You know, there are moments that the truth doesn't just challenge you, it really kind of exposes you. And that's exactly what happened for me a few years ago. I was listening to a podcast by Ed Milet. Great podcast, one of the top business rated podcasts in the world. And it was like Ed was talking directly to me. He began by describing this person. This person had very similar traits to me. He was talking about a metaphorical person. He was talking about this kind of guy. And I was nodding right along thinking, yeah, that's me. That's me. No, 100%. He's got me nailed. And then he said something that I'm pretty sure made me cuss, and I know with certainty that it did make me pretty aggressively turn the podcast off. What he said was, "You have a habit of breaking promises." And the YouTube acceptable version of what I thought was, that's not true at all. What I actually thought can't be shared across public airwaves. I was certain that I was not a promise breaker. I was very confident in the fact that I was a man who had a habit and a reputation of keeping promises. Number one, because my kids always used it against me. They would get me to say the words I promise, and then they knew it was going to happen. And that all actually stems from some trauma that was inflicted in childhood, emotional trauma that was inflicted in childhood. And so it was really drilled into me that I was going to keep promises. So I shut that podcast off. I could not get to the mouse fast enough to shut that thing down. But upon further reflection, I realized that Ed had built enough credibility with me that I wanted to hear what he was going to say. I had been listening to him long enough at that point, and I still listen to him. I'd been listening to him long enough at that point a couple of years ago that he had earned the right to be heard because he had helped me so much. So I eventually turned the podcast back on, and what he said next didn't just challenge me, it wrecked me. I actually had to shut the podcast off for a few more minutes so that I could maintain my composure, dry my tears so that I could see and be able to think clearly. Because as he went on, he wasn't talking about breaking promises to other people. He was talking about breaking promises to myself. And I suddenly realized that he was describing me to a T, right down to that line that I hated. I wasn't outwardly a promise breaker. Outwardly, everybody who knew me would say, Floyd keeps his promises. But I was in a habit of breaking promises to myself. And realizing that really drove me to tears. So here's the truth that a lot of men don't ever want to talk about. Most men, we don't fail at goals because we lack discipline. Some of us do. Some goals we fail at simply because we don't have the discipline to keep going. Oftentimes, though, we fail because we've gotten in a habit of breaking promises to ourselves. And every broken promise, especially promises made to you, will erode your confidence, your identity, and your spiritual authority. See, most of the time, it's not really a productivity problem. We like to be active. We like to be busy, especially those of us that are go-getters. We like to be doing things. We're doers. We want to do. We're fixers. We want to fix. We're builders. We want to build. And most of the time, it's not even really a discipline problem. It's not about checking the boxes. Most of the time, it's an integrity problem. It's an identity problem. But God is not impressed by your strong intentions. God is not impressed by you making promises. God is impressed and honored when you keep promises, even to you. God is honored by faithful execution of your word. So let's get to work. Listen, it's no surprise to you why this is coming out at this time of the year. If you're not watching this within the first couple of days, I'm releasing this at the end of December. We're getting ready to head into 2026. And again, like I said, I've taught this material every year. This year's different, but I've taught some version of this material every year for a very long time. And I do believe in setting goals, but I hate New Year's resolutions. I hate them. I'm a goal setter. I'm a strategic planner. I'm a goal setter. And quarterly, I review my goals. And at the end of the year, I review my goals for the year and set new goals for the coming year. And then at the end of March, I will review them. And at the end of June, I will review them. And at the end of September, I will review them. And I'll make adjustments along the way to make sure that I can either get back on track or adjust the goal to make sure that it's something that I can accomplish within the time frame that I've set. But every year, a bunch of people make New Year's resolutions. We make these bold declarations. We get super emotional and we promise that we're going to change. It's going to be different this year. A new year, a new me. Not if you continue to do the same things that you've always done. Because if you always do what you've always done, you'll always be who you've always been. If you want to be something different, you have to do something different. I actually think that's the hat I'm wearing. If you want to be something different, you have to do something different. The reality of it is about 40% of U.S. adults make New Year's resolutions every year. That's roughly 135 million people make a New Year's resolution every year. But 1 out of 4 quit within the first week. 25%. 34 million people quit within 7 days. What the heck changed in 7 days? About 88% fail before January ever ends. And only 9% actually keep their New Year's resolutions. That means that over 120 million people break promises that they made to themselves every year. Quitting has actually become such a part of the cultural narrative of the New Year's resolution that we have dubbed the second Friday of every January Quitter's Day. There's a day dedicated to quitting your New Year's resolution. And for men especially, we don't just quit because the goal was hard. No. We quit because something else became more important than the promise that we made. Something became more important to them than them. And let me just clarify. You may not use those words. You may not say, "Hey, Floyd, I promise you that I'm going to do this." But you make a commitment. You say, "I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to save this amount of money. I'm going to lose this amount of weight. I'm going to spend this much time in the gym. I'm going to read this many books. I'm going to get up at this time every day. I'm going to spend this much time with my family. I'm going to put my phone away and focus on the people, not the technology." And then we don't do it. And even if you don't use the words you promise, you've made some vows to yourself. And Scripture takes vows pretty seriously. Scripture takes promises and vows very, very seriously. Ecclesiastes 5, verses 4 and 5 says this: "When you make a vow to God, do not delay to pay it." Or don't delay doing what you said you were going to do. It's better that you should not vow than you should vow and not pay. Scripture doesn't celebrate the vow. Scripture doesn't celebrate the big promises. It actually warns against making careless ones. God takes words very seriously. God takes his word very seriously. And I think the only thing second to that is he takes your word very seriously. Your spoken words, your written words, your internal commitments. This isn't just about vows that you make at an altar in front of your bride on the day that you get married. This is about keeping your word. And today I'm talking about keeping your word to yourself. Numbers chapter 30, verse 2 tells us that a man must not violate his word. Your word is your bond, my dad used to say. Your word is your bond. Proverbs 20:25 warns that rash vows can become a snare. And Deuteronomy 23 makes it clear that if you make a vow, God requires that you keep it. If you don't, it's sin. Which means God would rather you promise less and follow through than promise big and fail. The biggest challenge for us is that when we repeatedly make promises to ourselves and we break our own word, something happens inside of us. And we train ourselves not to trust ourselves. When a man repeatedly breaks his word to himself, he trains himself not to trust himself. And a man who doesn't trust himself will struggle with God. He'll struggle with self. He'll struggle with family. He'll struggle with friends. He'll struggle in every relationship. Your self-confidence is built by keeping your word to yourself, and your self-confidence is destroyed by breaking it. Your spiritual confidence is built by keeping your word to yourself. And spiritual confidence isn't emotional. It's rooted in integrity. Broken promises don't just damage discipline, they damage identity. So you guys have all heard of SMART goals. I'm sure most anybody that does goal setting of any kind has heard of SMART goals. So let's talk about those for a minute. This is the model that I use with a little tweak at the end that I learned this week, because even though it's something that I teach regularly, it's also something that I study regularly. Scripture demands structure and it demands ownership. So SMART goals. S, be specific. God told Habakkuk in Habakkuk 2:2 to write the vision and make it plain so he who reads it may run. Be specific and write it down. You have to have clarity before you have movement. Vague goals create vague obedience. Vague goals means that you can lie to yourself and fool yourself into thinking that you have accomplished the goal when you really haven't. So be specific as possible. The M in SMART is measurable. Jesus considered foresight as wisdom. In other words, when you have the ability to look ahead and know if you're making progress, it means it's measurable. If you can't measure it, then you can't manage it. The A in SMART is achievable. God honors order and progression. Fantasy goals, things that aren't realistic or achievable, they create shame. At 52 years old, 5'10", 265 pounds, it would be ignorant for me to set a goal to play in the NBA. It's just not going to happen. That's a fantasy. It's not even my fantasy. I don't know whose fantasy it is, but it's not mine. Fantasy goals create shame, but goals that are achievable build momentum. The R in SMART is relevant. Paul says that he doesn't run aimlessly. He doesn't box as one beating the air, but he has a goal in mind. A goal can be good. You can have a good goal and it still be wrong for you. So how do you make sure that a goal is relevant? You ask yourself this question: why does this matter for the man that I'm responsible to be? How is achieving this goal going to affect me as a leader, as a husband, as a father, as a grandfather, as an employee, as a son of God? How is accomplishing this goal going to impact my life? The T in SMART is time-bound. The Bible tells us to redeem our time. If you don't have a timeline, if your goal is not time-bound, it means there's no urgency. It means that the goal is just out there kind of somewhere in the ether and you'll accomplish it whenever. You're never going to accomplish that because there's no urgency. You don't have to get it done by a specific date. When I was working through my PhD, I had these self-imposed deadlines because there weren't really any deadlines in the program. So I had to self-impose deadlines or I knew that I was never going to finish. And when it comes to spiritual matters, delayed obedience often disguises disobedience. I heard Dave Ramsey talk about this this week as I was listening to some teaching on goal setting. And this might be the missing piece for some of us. Why? So not SMART goals as much as SMARTY goals, I guess. Why? Make it yours. The goal has to be your goal. The goal has to be your goal. Not your wife's goal. Not that your wife wants you to lose weight. That's not going to work. Not that your pastor wants you to be in the Word. That's not going to work. Not that culture wants you to look a certain way or act a certain way. That's not going to work. Not that the old you wanted something. That's not going to work. The goal has to be yours. You have to take ownership of the goals that you set. Romans 14 tells us that each man will give an account for himself. You're not responsible for me. I'm not responsible for you. I am responsible for me, and you are responsible for you. So the goals that you set should be your goals. Borrowed goals can create resentment. Well, the only reason I was doing this is because she wanted me to, and now I failed, But owned goals create responsibility. I'm doing this because I know this is what I should do for me. So let's create a real world example to see what this looks like as we live it out. Maybe you want to develop some important disciplines. Well, here's a strategy you could use according to the SMART goal, SMARTY goal method. Let's say you want to spend more time in Scripture, you want to be more strategic about your day, and you want to spend more time moving your body. Cool. Specific. I will wake up at 5:30 a.m. or whatever it takes for you to get an extra hour in your day. I'll wake up at 5:30 a.m. I'll spend 20 minutes in the Word. I'll spend 20 minutes planning my day, and I'll spend 20 minutes intentionally moving, taking a walk, riding the bike, whatever, working out, lifting, whatever. Be specific. I'm going to get up at 5:30. I'm going to spend 20 minutes in Scripture. I'm going to spend 20 minutes in planning, and I'm going to spend 20 minutes of intentional movement. And the M, measurable for this one, pretty easy. It's binary. Did you get up at 5:30? Did you do the 20 minutes, and 20 minutes? Complete it or not? It's measurable. Did I do that 5 mornings a week? And you can track it on a simple checklist. You can set it as a reoccurring daily reminder in your phone. 20 minutes in the Word, 20 minutes planning my day, 20 minutes moving my body. And you check them off, they disappear, and show back up tomorrow morning at 5:30. A, is it achievable? Well, this one is. I'm not asking for 7 days a week. I'm not asking for 365 days a year. I'm not doing it forever. We're going to do it 5 days a week for 60 days just to try to establish a new rhythm. Could you do that? Is that achievable? Sure it is. Is it relevant? Relevant? Yes, because this directly impacts your leadership, your clarity, your emotional regulation, and your physical and spiritual health. Is this time-bound? Well, it is if you do it right. I'm going to start on the 2nd of January. Don't try to do it on the 1st. You're going to be up too late the night before. I'm going to start on the 2nd of January, or I'm going to start on Monday, the 5th of January. And I'm going to do it for 60 days. And I'm going to reevaluate after 30 days to see how it's going. And again, that's something that I talked about. That's something that I regularly do. The review and recalibrate goals is something that I do quarterly. And why? Is it yours? This isn't your wife's goal. It's not your pastor's goal. It's not a goal for ministry. It's not a goal that's related to my job. This is a goal for me. This is for me so that I can be a better man. This is my responsibility as a man who leads. We're not talking about forever. We're talking about 60 days in an effort to try to establish some new disciplines and some new rhythms in your life. Listen, this isn't for anyone else to know necessarily. I mean, I would encourage you to have a small group of guys that are committed to something similar and to check in with them. This is about personal integrity. This is about keeping a promise to yourself. I've said it already. I'm not a resolution guy. I'm a goal guy because goals can be reviewed, recalibrated, and owned. You can own your goals. It's not emotionally driven. It's not driven because it's the first of the year and everybody wants to do it. It's not that. It's because I need to make some promises to myself that I can keep, because keeping promises to myself helps build my confidence. Jesus said it like this: let your yes be yes and your no be no. That's it. If you say it, do it. If you're not going to do it, don't say it. Confidence isn't emotional. Confidence is evidence of things that you have done that you are willing to do. And confidence grows when your future self trusts the decisions that you are making right now. And with confidence will come discipline, because discipline is choosing between what you want now and what you want most. So here's my challenge for you. One goal. Set one goal. Write it down. Be specific, make it measurable, make sure it's achievable, determine that it's relevant, set time frames for it, and make sure that it's yours. And listen, if you're a person who has a habit of breaking promises to yourself, I am begging you, please start smaller than you want to. Start smaller than your ego wants you to. Because if you're in a habit of breaking promises to yourself, you have so low self-confidence that it's easy for you to give up on another thing. So start with something super basic, something that you're pretty sure you can accomplish. And then after you do that for a couple of weeks and you check off the box and you start to build some confidence, you can take it a step further and a step further and a step further. I mean something super simple, like brush your teeth, wash your face, and make your bed within the first 10 minutes of being awake in the morning. Like something super simple like that. Maybe it's hydration like me. When I started by drinking a half a gallon of water a day. Now I get a quarter of a gallon of water in before I leave my bedroom most every day. And like I said, I'm drinking like a gallon and a half every day. Maybe your goal is physical, movement. Start small. Don't go to the gym and try to lift for 2 hours. You're going to be too sore to move the next day, let alone go back to the gym. Start small. 30 minutes of intentional movement 3 days a week. Something super simple. Riding the bike, taking a walk, doing some calisthenics. Maybe it's lifting. Maybe it's yoga and Pilates. Don't laugh. They're harder than you think. Do something. And if you can't find 30 minutes in a day, we need to talk about scheduling if you can't find 30 minutes in a day. But if you can't find 30 minutes all at once in a day, where can you find 10 minutes? Can you get to work 10 minutes earlier and go for a walk? Can you go for a walk 10 minutes after dinner? Can you go for a 10-minute walk on your lunch break? There are 3 10-minute sections that you could get 30 minutes in a day. Of course, 30 minutes all at once is better, but something is better than nothing. Maybe for you, it's starting with 10 minutes of intentional movement every day. Maybe it's that. Maybe it's time in the Word. Start simple, get some wins. Maybe this year you don't set out to read the Bible through in a year. Maybe you start out with a commitment to read for 10 minutes a day or 1 chapter a day or whatever you know you can do. Maybe it's as simple as getting YouVersion and reading the verse of the day every day. And then when you stack some wins and check the box and build some confidence, take it a little further, stretch yourself. Maybe it's financial. Maybe it's financial, and maybe the goal isn't to save a large number this year. Maybe it's just to save $10 a week, something to get you started, because it's the small, consistent, sustainable steps. It's the things that you can do over and over and over again. It's the little wins that stack up into large successes over time. Little wins will stack up into large victories. You don't need to make huge promises. You need to make promises that you can keep. Should you stretch yourself? Absolutely. But start with just being honest with yourself. God doesn't need men with big words. He needs men with big action. He needs men that are war ready.